Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday to you all. We gather on this, I think, our 18th or 19th Q&A session. We were just talking briefly with our media group about which one this is, and that's very good to hear. So, I am just finishing up an email, and we will get on our way. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Okay, so happy to be with you all. We did have a wonderful question. Well, first of all, we had a wonderful Mass today. I hope you were able to tune in. And I hope we have a couple people tuning in right now as well. We'll see how many of us are able to take a moment. I know it's a little bit warm outside, but maybe it's fun and good to get outside. Maybe you're inside cooling down a little bit. I got a little warm. I sometimes get a little hot in the cassock and then the alb and then the vestment, so it gets a little nuts. But let's pull up our Q&A Q&A on our Facebook page. Tick-tock, tick-tock. There it is. Okay, let's see if I can get this going, because I'd love to check up with you guys. Okay, it is live now, and there we are. We're 4 of us watching. Awesome. Nice to see you all. And I'm happy to have this time with you, even though it may be a little brief. But it's great to meet you through the means that are available to us on Facebook and on YouTube and whatever ways we can. Right? That's evangelization. That's what St. John the Evangelist did. He wrote the Gospel of St. John so that we may come to know Christ. And so, how do we evangelize in this modern age? Well, by reading, by writing, by communicating, by our conversation at church, by obviously participating in the preaching that we hear there, but also by making it available on our YouTube channel, on our website. We evangelize. And St. John the Evangelist has that title because he was a great evangelizer. He also has the title of St. John the Apostle, St. John the Beloved Disciple. So St. John has a lot of titles because there's a lot of different aspects to him that were so noteworthy. Right? So what's noteworthy about us? Are we, Father Pierz, the couch potato? Or am I Father Pierz, the parish priest? Father Pierz, the pastor? Father Pierz, the tall one? Father Pierz, the sky's the limit? I don't know. Right? What are they going to say about you? Are you an evangelist? Are you a couch potato? We can evangelize everywhere and anywhere. It's easier to do it at home, right? To talk with our family and friends. And I'm not saying talking about politics or religion. It's not about just talking about religion. That gets emotions inflamed. But it means talking about good things, holy things. Talking about ways of bringing peace. Politics is about policies. What kind of stimulus package Congress should pass or presidents should initiate. That's politics, policies. And it's good in society that we have those individuals who consider different policies and different actions, different ways of helping society to function, for us to get along, right? But each of us are called to seek holiness in our lives. It's not a question of policies for our society or policies for our schools or policies for our parishes or policies for our homes and our families, what we do in our homes, but it's a question of holiness, and that's individual. But also there's a communal aspect to it. Holiness that is to follow the will of God. And sometimes, religion and politics can end up in a great argument and frustration. But it need not be, if we respect each other and if we sincerely seek the truth. A lot of our conversations end up in a lot of frustration because we think we're talking about the same thing, but maybe we're not. Maybe we mean different things when we say love, when we say marriage, when we say man. Sometimes I'm afraid to say man because I'm talking about the human person, the individual particularity of humanity. That is an individual substance of a rational nature and a human nature. That's man. And guess what? Within man there is men who are male and women who are female. But if you say man, for us men and for our salvation, we say that at Mass, we're talking about for each and every single human person, male and female. And of all, of all ages, of all races, of all places and backgrounds, for us men and for our salvation. Sometimes people hear that and they bristle because they think it's misogynistic. And that's unfortunate. But certainly we can acknowledge that there has been misogyny in society. We can acknowledge that there has been great confusion even in the life of the church, as there's confusion in the life of the world, the life of man. But let's hold on to what's true. God is love. Not love is God, but God is love. Let's hold on to what is true, that God sent His only begotten Son so that we may be saved. And when we can agree on certain truths, even if it means having to really dig deep into our, at times, confused terms or definitions, but if we really clarify and we really come to understand with clarity what we mean in our terms and our definitions, then by logic we can arrive at sound argument. So I invite you to be evangelists in your homes, in your communities, at Geisler's or the supermarket, Big Y. Be an evangelist, even if it means wearing a cross, a simple little chain or a little medal, miraculous medal of Mary. Be an evangelist and don't be afraid to just share good news. And what is that good news but the gospel? It doesn't mean being preachy. It can easily fall into preachiness. It can be something that easily many priests and ourselves fall into. But it's just about sharing the joy of the gospel. And Pope Francis is certainly keen on us sharing the gospel. So I am encouraging you to be evangelists where you are, and we'll call you Mary the Evangelist, and Betty the Evangelist, and John the Evangelist, and Aidan the Evangelist. We'll call you the good men and women of Christ in His church. So let's take a look at some of our questions. And before we take on some new questions, we had a question last week that didn't come up on my computer, unfortunately. You know how I am with technology. Sometimes it doesn't work out very well with me here. But there was a question a week ago that I wanted to address, and I know it was a difficult one. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So we get it exactly what it is. What would you say to those that sin and commit brutal and horrific acts against women and do not admit, apologize, or acknowledge that they did these acts, such as rape or violence? They only say that they go to church or pray, but never admit it to their victims, apologize, or change their ways. They repeatedly commit the same acts. And that came to us last week from Angela, and I'm sorry that I didn't see it when we were having our conversation last week. And it's certainly a challenging question, and it's a question that carries with it much pain. And what would I say hearing this question? Well, the first thing that I want to say is I'm sorry for the pain that has been inflicted, whether upon you personally or someone you know, someone you love. I would join you in that suffering. And I'm sorry that you're suffering. And I'm sorry that happened. These acts such as rape or violence. And I know that God joins us in that suffering as well. He cries with us as he wept for his friend Lazarus when he died. He grieves with us as he lifted up the woman about to be stoned for committing adultery. Christ is with us. God is with us. So the first thing is that we need to reach out to each other and to bring God to each other. And remember, God is love. And maybe it just means listening. Listening to the hurt, listening to the pain. And then seeing how we can find peace. Personally, who suffered. How can I find peace? How can I ask God to give me back something that I lost? He's not going to turn back time. He's not going to suddenly undo the act. But perhaps he can help us heal from the wounds if we let him, if we show him our woundedness. Remember, he's the divine physician. He's the healer of body and soul. And perhaps I would invite, again, those of us who've suffered great acts of violence, especially women and children, but all of us, to allow ourselves to be cared for by God first. And I know that's a difficult request. To allow ourselves to be vulnerable to God, even though we may not want to be vulnerable. Maybe we want to hide ourselves because we've been hurt. And that takes energy, that takes effort, that takes time. I'll take time. But God is the first one that we can find healing from. And a good friend and family, perhaps, maybe someone that you trust, could be helpful in giving us encouragement and helping us find peace. But then when we address the fact of violence, especially the perpetrators of violence, we need to speak firmly against that. Speak firmly against violence. And someone who repeatedly commits violence or acts of violence, I can't force them to admit it. I can't force them to apologize. I can't force them to acknowledge. as much as I'd want to, as much as I would think that I need them to apologize. But someone who repeats such acts needs to be stopped. When someone commits some sin or some crime, first we ask them to stop. And then if they won't listen to us, then we ask someone else to come with us and to help us in asking them to stop. And even if they won't listen to us, then we should go even to higher authorities, whether it means civic authorities or public law enforcement authorities. And it depends on certainly the nature of the violence. If it's criminal, then we bring it to the police. And we hear it even in Scripture, right? How if someone has wronged us, if someone has wronged us, we go up to them and we ask them to correct the wrong. If they won't listen to us, then we go with others in the community. And if they won't listen to the others in the community, then we go to the church. The people of God, the people of the same heart and mind. And if they won't listen to them, then perhaps it takes stronger recourse, right? But I mean, someone who continues in doesn't change their ways, they repeatedly commit the same acts. If someone is not bringing us to God, if someone is continually actually committing sin and committing violence against us, then we must find a way to get away from them. If it's a sin or a crime, something immoral, and if it's something that is, again, a sin or specifically criminal in society, then it's something that we should bring to the police. Because people who continue to remain in sin and won't change their ways, sometimes that means we just have to truly step away and commend them to God. If it's, let's say, not criminal, but it's something that is, if a family member, it just causes us pain. And I'm not saying, again, not something that's criminal or something that's immoral, but perhaps it's just someone who has hurt us, said some things, and has grieved us and won't apologize for it. Perhaps we can forgive them. And forgive doesn't mean that suddenly, poof, I forget about the pain or the sin that you've committed against me. To forgive someone doesn't mean that suddenly we're best friends again and everything is forgotten. No, to forgive means that I will not allow this sin, this hurt, this wound, to stop me from loving you. And that's a hard ask, isn't it? But loving that person doesn't mean that you have to suddenly be best friends again. Loving that person doesn't mean that you have to even see them again. Loving that person maybe means we need to be apart. And that's difficult because forgiveness helps us heal. Forgiveness helps us to come back to love. And remember, loving doesn't always mean that we like. We can love many, and we are called to love all. Love our neighbor as ourselves. But it doesn't mean we have to like them. So if someone will not change their ways, maybe it means we need to distance our relationship a little bit. So I hope this gives some thought some prayer, some forgiveness, some healing for ourselves, and also to sternly rebuke sinners, redress the wrong. We have it in the very precepts of the Church to instruct the ignorant and to correct the wrongs. So that means, if someone commits a crime, we can forgive them, but it still means they have to go to jail. They still have to make reparation for their faults. If they commit a crime that is by justice, forgiveness doesn't just mean, everything's fine and you get off the hook. No, forgiveness is a different action. Justice is still to be exercised, as is mercy and justice. Because sometimes justice is mercy when it's clear, when a grievous offense is committed. It is merciful to demand justice. And to demand justice is merciful. So I hope this gives some thought. Thank you, Angela, for your question last week. I'm sorry I didn't see it last week, but I hope that it gives some thought. And again, if you or others that you know or others that are watching this have been pained by the sins of others, the crimes of others, I join you in prayer, and the Church joins you in prayer. The Church joins you in that suffering. Christ joins you in that. He knows what it was to bear the punishment for others' crimes, for others' wrongs. Look to the Lord, look to the cross. And please find strength in it and hope. Okay. Let us come back here to our Q&A. I don't know if there are some new questions. If not, well, we have a few more minutes. If I can. It's okay. Super duper. Let's take a look. Click. Hey, Tyler. Nice to see you. Tyler visited us at St. John's not too long ago. He's here again. Your favorite Catholic movie to watch, nonfiction or fiction? Your favorite Catholic movie to watch? Oh my gosh. I love movies. There's a lot of movies that I like. I used to love to go even to the theater just to catch a flick, right? On a matinee or on a discount day over down in West Springfield, whatever, Infield. And now the movies were closed, and it's been so hard. And, there's a lot of good movies out there, and there's a lot of junky movies. But when we're talking about Catholic movies, nonfiction or fiction, right now my heart is moving to that. A lot of the movies that we have unformed. I really enjoy a lot of movies that we have unformed. And I'm going to say that. Last week, I think I mentioned this. I was kind of flipping through the channels on a Saturday night. And, sometimes you'll watch something on, some of the channels that are available, and you're kind of thumbing through things. And I ended up on EWTN, and I love EWTN, together with Catholic TV, also very good. But EWTN has these movie nights on Saturday nights, typically. And I mentioned how I was flipping through the channels, and I came on a movie on St. Ignatius of Loyola. And it was a Catholic movie, and I was like, history or experience or my childhood, society perhaps, we're not blaming it, but we're just saying it has made out Christian movies or Catholic movies to be a little campy, to be a little limited budget. It's not a Hollywood blockbuster, right? And so I still have that kind of residual I still have that kind of residual reaction to Catholic or Christian movies. But I was flipping through the channels and I was like, oh, this is probably going to be, a little cheesy. But I watched it for about 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, and 15 minutes. And it wasn't as cheesy. Now, I don't know if I've become a little bit more cheesy myself, or if actually the movies are getting better. And I think that they are actually getting better. And EWTN has them on Saturday nights that are just great, on the lives of the saints. And maybe it's just that I've started to recognize, like, that the saints are not just statues that look nice. Look, he's got keys, a nice little book. Nice. I'm going to go pray in a church and light a candle, and it's all nice and rosy and sweet. No, the lives of the saints are bold. The lives of the saints are like passionate. St. Ignatius, again, was a great passionate knight. He wanted to fight for his nation. And he had a great conversion. Didn't mean that he suddenly became, a weakling. No, a man and a woman of faith are strong and bold and heroes. Saint Peter, the keys to the kingdom of heaven and earth, the keys to fight against the powers of evil that come attacking against the gates of our hearts. And they will not, and the forces of evil will not prevail against the gates of heaven. And he's got keys. So some of these Catholic movies are actually pretty cool. And maybe because I know a little bit more about the saints, they are more exciting. So I really enjoyed that movie last week on St. Ignatius of Loyola. And there's a movie that I just love. It moves my heart. Maybe I'm a little bit more sentimental. It moves my heart, St. Philip Neri. Gosh, I like that movie. Just, there's such goodness to it. And how God is good through his saints, through us, his people. He makes us his instruments. God's grace, God's power, not our own, but God's grace, God's power working through us in our words when we share faith with one another, in our actions when we give, not just from our bounty and our surplus and our abundance, but giving from our very depths, from our poverty. That demands a lot, but God gives so much more. So some of those movies on EWTN or Formed, like I said, check out our Formed subscription. Our parishioners have access to it. A lot of parishes have access to it. Reach out to your parish office, your priest, and they can get you part of the subscription. And then there's also other good Catholic. There are good Catholic lives of the saints, as I mentioned, kind of documentaries. Those are very biopics. But there's also good Catholic cinema, and certainly, I mean, this isn't cinema; it's the telling of the gospel. But Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ is a beautiful film that helps us enter into those hours of the Holy Triduum, the Passion of the Christ. But there's also great fiction, and he's not a Catholic, but he certainly had great Catholic sensibilities. C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia. Those are fun movies, books, of course, but good movies that help us to seek the Lord, seek the lion-hearted. Father Brown, there's a television program. Right now it can be a little bit more cinematic than it is Catholic, but G.K. Chesterton wrote the great Father Brown series, and you can find a lot of great Father Brown books. Eva Lenoir, Brideshead Revisited. Brideshead Revisited, another good film. So the book, so there's a handful of good Catholic content out there. I invite you to take a look at Formed, EWTN, and there's still some more. So thank you, Tyler. Enjoy something to watch. I hope it gives you some ideas. Lives of the Saints are always good, and some of these fun, cinematic works. Is there any danger in watching the Harry Potter movies or reading the books? If you read them as fiction, if you read them as a story, then it shouldn't be that much of a problem. If how many of us have seen, Superman or Spider-Man or Batman? If we know that that's a story. Harry Potter's a story. It becomes dangerous when we start to buy into the idea of the incantations, when we start to buy into the idea of, spells. That's when we start to get into dangerous waters. There are some games, different boards, for example, where you speak to spirits, or cards. Those become dangerous because we may think they're games, we may think that they're just stories, but we start opening ourselves up to evil spirits. I'm not saying that Harry Potter is full of evil spirits, but it starts to push the line. So you need to know yourself and how you receive these things. And some things do go beyond the line. Like I mentioned, some of these games or some of these practices. I remember when the Da Vinci Code came out a number of years ago, years and years ago, I guess at this point. And I remember it was huge. I mean, the book was big fanfare. And then the movie, and I was curious about it. I was really curious about it. I still am. I've seen parts of it. But then, and even until this day, I haven't watched it. And I hadn't watched it then. Because at that time, I was still in high school, college, something like that. And I'll admit to you that I was intrigued by it. It was curiosity, the stories. But I knew that I was not perhaps firm enough in my understanding of the faith, the understanding of the church, even the history of the church, history of Christian faith. I was afraid that I was not secure in my understanding of it, that watching that film or reading that book would have caused me to lose my sense, to lose my understanding. I would not have been able to defend for myself, just for myself, the teachings of the church, the teachings of Christ. And so it was a fun story, but I didn't want it to enter into my mind and, in a sense, infect my understanding. Now that I know a little bit more, now that I've studied a little bit more, I can understand it a little bit better. And so when it talks, in this case, this story about Jesus actually having been married, or St. John the Evangelist in the Last Supper image of Da Vinci actually not being St. John the Evangelist, but Mary Magdalene, and right, they're transposing. I remember seeing some of these things. That's someone says that, it sows doubt. And doubt can be destructive. So I need to know where I'm grounded. It doesn't mean that I'm running away from these questions, but it means that I need to know the facts. I need to have some understanding. So, the Da Vinci Code, Harry Potter, Do you understand miracles? At least a little bit? Do you understand the power of intercession and the power of prayer? The power of the sacraments? There's a difference between a prayer of blessing versus a spell or a chant. There's a difference between the anointing of the sick with sacred oil versus the waving of a magic wand. And that's where we need to know the distinctions. A magic wand is a magic wand, a thing of imagination. But a cross is not magic. It's God's grace. It's not superstition, it's faith. There's different, and faith is an act of the will. God's will and our will, freely exercised to unite it to God's will. God is a personal agent. He's or in a sense an actor, one who acts. But there are also evil spirits who try to act. So there's these questions of how we see God at work, how we see the angels and the saints at work, manifesting their will, how we see evil spirits at work, how we see ourselves at work, how we're exercising our will. Some things to think about. So I know, again, I'm not saying firmly it's dangerous to watch the Harry Potter. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it could be. And that's the Catholic both and, isn't it? So, to know thyself, take care of thyself, form yourself, form your conscience. A lot of people, and a lot of good people, and this is kind of a tangent, and we'll be finishing up here soon. But your conscience, we need to form our conscience well. Because we want to be free in conscience. We want to be able to make good decisions, good choices, to choose well, and to choose according to our conscience. But a malformed conscience cannot choose well. And so, to form our conscience, we listen to our parents. We listen to appropriate authorities. We listen to the church to help us discern what is good and what is bad. And good people can make bad decisions because they haven't formed their conscience well. They haven't reasoned well, perhaps, and formed their intellect. And because their intellect perhaps is not judging well, then their will is not exercising well. And we can make bad choices. So form your conscience, form your intellect. Seek the truth, not just the facts, but the truth, capital T, that which is. And that's where with faith and reason we can come to the truth. With faith and reason we can come to the truth. And God wills us to know the truth. So I appreciate our conversation, and if I've missed any comments or any questions, you know that we'll check on them coming up. I saw that there was another shout out from Mary Kate about The Scarlet and the Black. Awesome movie. I'd like it too. Thank you for reminding me of that. Some of our seminarians were watching it just last week. I gave a little talk to some of the men to be ordained about the priesthood, about specifically the rite of ordination and the prayers that we have in the rite of ordination, how Christ calls us to be as priests, to teach, to govern, to sanctify, priest, prophet, and king, and what that means in our service, what that means in our ministry. It was great to meet with them, some of the men to be ordained, and they were watching The Scarlet and the Black. And it's a good movie. That's a good one, too. So thanks, Mary Kate, for bringing that up. I like that one as well. I join you. And there's so many others. So actually, if you're watching this, why don't you add a comment? And what's a good Catholic movie you've seen? What's something that's encouraged you in your faith? And you can share that with others. And Tyler and any other friends and family can come and take a look at your thoughts. So love to share that. So thank you all. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you again soon. We're going to try for Wednesday again this week. So maybe before Sunday, we'll try to have a Q&A this coming Wednesday at 7 o'clock or close to it, 7:15, hopefully 7. And we'll take some more of your questions. So start thinking about them, and you can even start writing them in. God bless you all. Thank you.